The sterile scent of the hospital room was a constant assault on my senses, a clean, cold lie over the messy truth of what was happening. Dad's breath was a thin, rattling whisper, a fragile rhythm counting down the final moments of his long, successful life. My sister, Clara, sat at his bedside, her hand enveloping his. Her face, tear-streaked and pale, was a portrait of pure, unblemished grief. "He looks so peaceful, doesn't he, Alex?" she whispered, her voice a raw, broken thing. "Like he's already somewhere beautiful." I just nodded, a practiced mask of sorrow on my own face, while my mind was a whirlwind of calculations and cold logic. Peace was a luxury I couldn't afford. The real prize was the empire Dad had built from scratch, a multi-million-dollar tech firm that had grown with the Seattle skyline. Clara, with her romantic notions of art and beauty, saw a father. I saw a legacy, a life's work that I, the pragmatist, the one who worked alongside him for a decade, deserved to control. The original will, sitting in a file in my purse, ached against my side. It was a document of betrayal, splitting everything down the middle. But I had made a few calls, and I had a new, discreetly amended version. A few forged signatures, a quiet word with a complicit notary. It was a small detail, a minor adjustment for a major reward. Dad's last shallow exhale was the signal, the starting gun. Clara dissolved into a heart-wrenching sob, but all I could hear was the distant, satisfying hum of a cash register. "Don't worry, Clara," I said, my voice dripping with feigned sympathy as I squeezed her hand. "You'll get your share." The neon lights of Seattle, a million sparkling promises, blinked on outside, each one a testament to the future I was about to seize. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to the channel for more like it. The funeral was a blur of hollow condolences and black-clad acquaintances. Clara was a vision of tragic grace, a beautiful widow to our father's memory. I, on the other hand, felt like a fraud, a puppet on a string of deceit. 3 days later, the mask came off. I sat across from Mr. Henderson, our family lawyer, in his elegant office overlooking the Puget Sound. Henderson, a man whose face was as wrinkled and weary as the legal tomes on his shelves, held the original will. His eyes, magnified behind thick glasses, held a gentle skepticism. "Your father was very clear about his wishes, Alexandra," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "A 50-50 split." I slid the new document across his polished mahogany desk. "Dad's wishes changed," I said, my voice steady, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. He was concerned about Clara's business sense, her artistic temperament. He wanted me to have the controlling stake, to protect the legacy. I pointed to the forged signature, a barely there waver in the final letter. "He was so frail in his last weeks," I explained, forcing a catch in my throat. Henderson's gaze lingered on the signature, then on my face. He had known me since I was a child. He wanted to believe me. After a long, agonizing pause, he sighed, the sound of a weary man giving in to a terrible certainty. He agreed to proceed with the new will, his ethical duty warring with his affection for our family. The feeling of the amended will in my hands was a powerful rush of adrenaline. It was done. The rain-slicked streets of Seattle outside mirrored the cold, slick feeling of my victory. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about proving I was the rightful heir, the only one strong enough to carry Dad's name. The house, once a warm and chaotic home filled with Dad's laughter and Clara's artistic projects, felt unnaturally quiet. Clara, lost in a fog of grief, began the painful process of sorting through Dad's things. I watched her, a knot of guilt tightening in my chest, as she held up a faded photograph of the three of us on a sunny summer day. Dad teaching us how to fly a kite in a local park. "He was so happy then," she said, a fragile smile on her lips. "Remember how he would always try to catch the kite when we let go?" I forced a smile, my mind a cold, calculating machine. I needed to maintain the illusion of sisterly solidarity. "I'll handle all the legal details," I told her, my voice a soothing lie. "Don't you worry about a thing. I'll make sure you're taken care of." I drove her to a charming little cafe she loved near our old neighborhood. The air inside was thick with the scent of roasted coffee and cinnamon. She spoke of her dreams, her eyes bright with a hope that felt like a punch to my gut. With the inheritance, I could finally open my own small gallery. I've always wanted a space for local artists, for things that aren't about money. I nodded along, my smile fixed in place, all the while knowing the truth of the situation. Her dream was a beautiful, innocent thing, and I was about to crush it under the weight of my ambition. The Seattle skyline, a familiar backdrop of my life, now seemed to mock me with its cold, indifferent grandeur. Clara's trust was a tool, a means to an end. It was the only way to get what I deserved. The day of the will reading felt like a final judgment. The air in Henderson's office was thick with the silent tension of what was to come. Clara sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly, a nervous but hopeful expression on her face. Henderson cleared his throat, his gaze carefully avoiding mine, and began to read. He detailed the division of assets, listing each property, each investment, each sum of money. He read my name, the sole beneficiary of the main estate, the house, the company. Then, he read a small, separate clause for Clara. It was for a meager sum, a pittance barely enough to cover a few months' rent in the city. Her head snapped up, her face a stark, white canvas of disbelief. "What?" she whispered, the single word a thin, piercing sound. That can't be right." I sat there, a statue of stone, my heart pounding in a chaotic rhythm of fear and triumph. Henderson continued reading, his voice monotone, as if he were trying to distance himself from the act. Clara turned her eyes to me, her beautiful, trusting eyes now filled with a raw, desperate hurt. "Alex?" she pleaded, her voice cracking. I held her gaze for a single, excruciating moment before my cowardice won out, and I looked away. The victory I had so desperately sought felt like ash in my mouth. Outside, a sudden downpour began, washing the city in sheets of gray. The finality of the moment was immense, irreversible, and utterly devastating. The line between us was drawn, and I was on the wrong side. If you're finding this story compelling, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Clara's rage wasn't a raging inferno. It was a deep, freezing cold that settled over her, chilling her to the bone and, by proximity, me. She didn't scream or throw things, didn't give me the dramatic scene I almost expected. She simply went quiet, a silence so profound it was more deafening than any scream could have been. The very next day, a small, unremarkable rental van pulled up to the house. I watched from the doorway, a spectator to the dismantling of our shared past, as she loaded her few belongings, a couple of suitcases, a box of old books, a portfolio of her art. Her face was a mask of cold resolve I had never seen before, all warmth and softness replaced by a hard, unfamiliar edge. "I can explain," I began, my voice a hollow offering to the vast emptiness between us. She simply shook her head, a small, definitive gesture. "I don't think you can," she said, her voice flat and unfamiliar, like a stranger's. She drove away without a backward glance, leaving a silence that echoed through the house, making every room feel vast and empty. The memories of our childhood, once a source of warmth and comfort, now felt like ghosts haunting the halls. I tried to bury myself in the new responsibilities, in managing Dad's company, but the satisfaction I had expected never came. The grand victory felt like a small, petty theft. My friends, noticing my new isolation, would ask about Clara. "We had a fight," I would say, a lie I hoped they would believe. The chill of the Seattle winter seemed to have settled deep into my bones, a cold I couldn't shake. The house, my prize, was a gilded cage of my own making, and the freedom I had so desperately chased had left me a prisoner. I was rich, but I was utterly, profoundly alone. Months passed, each one marked by the suffocating weight of Clara's silence. It became my constant companion, a ghost in every room. I poured all my energy into renovating the house, filling it with sleek, new, expensive furniture. The house looked perfect, like a page ripped from an architectural magazine, but it was sterile and soulless. One afternoon, a mutual friend mentioned Clara was working at a small, struggling art gallery in a different neighborhood. I found myself driving there, an irresistible pull guiding me against my better judgment. The gallery was small and charming, tucked between a dusty bookstore and a bustling coffee shop. Inside, Clara's back was to me, as she meticulously arranged a small, abstract sculpture. She was thinner, her shoulders hunched with a new kind of weary strength, the grace of her movements replaced by a practiced efficiency. The chime of the doorbell made her turn. Her eyes, once so full of unconditional trust, widened in a moment of surprise before a cold, blank wall came down, sealing off any access to the person she once was. "Alex," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. I tried to apologize, the words feeling hollow and inadequate even to my own ears. I offered her money, a desperate, pathetic gesture of goodwill that felt like a cheap bribe. She shook her head, a flicker of profound pain crossing her face before she hid it again. "It was never about the money, Alex," she said, her voice a barely audible whisper. "It was about trust. You stole that from me." The gallery was a testament to her quiet resilience, a beautiful, fragile thing she had built from nothing. I left with a profound sense of loss, the distance between us wider than any physical space. The money I had stolen felt like a heavy stone in my pocket. The silence from Clara was a suffocating blanket, and beneath it, I felt a growing unease. Then, the first crack in my carefully constructed world appeared. A formal letter arrived from Mr. Henderson's office. He was reviewing old files for an audit, and had noticed a minor, but compelling, inconsistency in my father's signature on the new will. He recommended a forensic analysis. A knot of cold dread tightened in my stomach. I had been so careful, so meticulous. I called Henderson immediately, my voice a desperate attempt at nonchalance. "It must be a simple mistake, a clerical error," I said, my heart a frantic hummingbird in my chest. But Henderson's tone was firm, his voice grave and unforgiving. "The evidence is compelling, Alexandra. You'll be hearing from the courts." The world around me, once so solid and secure, began to wobble on its axis. The truth, like a slow-moving wrecking ball, was swinging inevitably toward my life. I tried to call Clara, to somehow make amends, to plead for her help, but her number had been disconnected. The power and control I had felt after the will reading was replaced by a paralyzing fear. My beautiful, expensive house, my supposed fortress, felt like a glass house, every window a potential weakness, every wall a lie that was about to shatter. As the truth starts to unravel, make sure you're subscribed to catch the final chapters of this story. The legal process was a slow, public, and agonizing crawl. Clara, with the help of a pro bono lawyer, filed a lawsuit. The city, once my oyster, became a prison. The news of the lawsuit spread through our social circles like a disease. Friends who had admired my success now looked at me with suspicion and judgment. My business reputation, built on a shaky foundation of deceit, began to crumble. Investors pulled out. Partnerships dissolved. My carefully constructed life was falling apart, piece by piece. The forged will, once my prize, was now a shackle. I was called in for questioning. The cold, sterile walls of the courthouse a stark contrast to the luxurious confines of my home. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman with no patience for my pretense, laid out the evidence with merciless clarity. the expert analysis of the signature, the timeline of events, the sudden, suspicious change in the will. I sat there, silent and defeated, my confidence and arrogance gone, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. I saw Clara in the hallway one day, her face a mask of weary resolve, a strength I had never seen in her before. She didn't look at me, her focus on a future she was building for herself, a future I had almost stolen. The city skyline, once a symbol of my ambition and success, now seemed to loom over me, a silent, disapproving witness to my downfall. The court's verdict was swift and devastating. The new will was declared null and void, and the assets were to be distributed according to the original will. The judge's words were a cold, hard finality, a hammer striking the gavel on the coffin of my old life. Greed, she stated, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom, cannot be rewarded. The legal consequences were only the beginning. The public humiliation was immense. The media, hungry for a scandal, painted me as a manipulative, avaricious villain. My remaining friends distanced themselves. The trust fund I had so desperately sought was now tied up in legal fees and restitution. The house, the car, the life I had built on a lie, it was all gone. I was left with a fraction of what I had, and the bitter knowledge that I had lost something far more valuable. My sister. I saw her on the local news one night, being interviewed at her gallery. She was talking about her new foundation, helping young artists find their voice. She looked radiant, genuinely happy, her face illuminated by the bright studio lights. A single tear slipped down my cheek, a testament to the life I could have had, the person I could have been. The Seattle rain beat against my window, a constant, mournful rhythm. I had everything I had ever wanted, but I had lost everything that truly mattered. My new life was a world away from the one I had so ruthlessly pursued. I lived in a small, cramped apartment, the silence a constant, heavy reminder of my isolation. I worked a part-time job, something I never imagined I would have to do, a ghost in my own city, a shadow of the woman I had once been. One evening, as I walked home in the cold, gray drizzle, I passed a small cafe and saw Clara sitting inside, laughing with a group of friends. She looked so happy, so free, a quiet joy radiating from her. She had built a new life, a better life, on a foundation of honesty and hard work. I, on the other hand, was haunted by my own choices. I thought of Dad's last moments, of Clara's genuine grief, of my own cold, calculated deceit. The immense weight of my actions settled over me, a burden I would carry forever. I had wanted so much, and in the end I had gained nothing of true value. The inheritance had been a mirage, a cruel trick of fate. I had gotten my share, yes, a share of loneliness, regret, and the bitter knowledge that I had destroyed the one person who had truly loved me. I walked on, a ghost in my own city, the cold wind of a Seattle night a final, chilling testament to the life I had chosen. Thank you for watching. You'll get your share. If you were moved by this story, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more compelling narratives.